Hey there, I'm estate planning attorney Paul Rabalais, and in this video, we're going to talk about why the revocable living trust concept is so popular. All right, so before we get into why it's so popular, I have to just touch on really what is a living trust. So the main purpose of a living trust, often referred to as a revocable living trust, the main purpose of a living trust is to govern the distribution of your trust assets after your death and have all of that done outside of the court and attorney involved probate process that governs the distribution of assets that are in your name when you pass away. So the concept is you establish your own living trust or your own revocable living trust. And when you do that, you are referred to as either the settlor or the grantor or the trustor. You designate how those trust assets are to be distributed at your death. All of that is confined within the terms of the trust instrument, and you name a trustee, often referred to as a successor trustee, because you're the trustee of that trust while you're alive, but when you pass away, that successor trustee that you named is able to step right in and oversee the distribution of those trust assets to your trust beneficiaries. So while the setting up of your trust is relatively easy, it's similar to the concept of setting up a will. The key difference between setting up a trust and setting up a will is when you set up a trust, the title of any assets that you want to be in your trust when you pass away that title must be transferred to your trust either at the time that you set up the trust or at some point during your lifetime. So why are these living trusts so popular? I think I know that there's some practical and there's some emotional reasons. On the practical side, most of the practical reasons around people forming living trusts involve avoiding probate. Probate gets a pretty bad rap, and much of that bad rap is deserved due to the a number of things. The professional fees charged by the attorneys, the accountants, the executors. Sometimes these fees that are calculated based on a percentage of the assets in the probate estate. Sometimes these fees do not always bear a reasonable relationship to the tasks that are involved. Another reason probate gets a bad rap is because most probate take months to complete. And for those that don't take months to complete, they take years to complete. It's just a slow process, and sometimes there's just nothing that can be done to speed it up. There are delays inherent in gathering the appropriate estate information so that it's provided in formats that the court approves. Sometimes there are delays in attorneys preparing all of the different rounds of court pleadings that are necessary. Sometimes there's delays because all of the participants or all of the heirs in a probate proceeding have to sign off on and agree on that all of the probate pleadings are accurate. And sometimes these probate pleadings there's accountings involved, they're difficult to understand. So sometimes there's delays in just getting everybody to sign off on the different rounds of court pleadings. And in just about every probate, there's always a waiting period where heirs are waiting on perhaps the courthouse or a judge at the courthouse to sign the appropriate court orders and go through the processing system that those court orders have to go through before action can be taken with those court orders. And then sometimes there's delays at financial institutions because once the judges sign the orders, then the lawyers of the financial institutions have to review the orders and make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before those financial institutions will release estate assets to the heirs. So a lot of delays, and so that's some of the reasons. That's some of the practical reasons why probate gets a bad rap and why people often, why the concept of a living trust is so popular, because it really gets around this often complicated probate process. There is also some emotional reasons why I think this living trust concept is so popular, because when someone comes to the realization that they're just not going to live forever, maybe they got a medical diagnosis that was not real good, or maybe they saw a family member or a friend pass away and they realize, well, they're not going to live forever. And maybe somebody just comes to the realization that they're just not getting any younger. Well, when they get to that realization, they often want to do as much preparation, as much reasonable preparation that they can do so that they can make things easier for their loved ones. And the living trust concept really fits that reason pretty well. The concept is take care of some things now, even do a little bit of work now to get things titled in a way so that when you pass away, your trust will be what's called funded, the assets will be in your trust, and then you've just made it so much easier for that successor trustee that you designated to just immediately start dispersing assets to the trust beneficiaries. So, and because if you left everything in your name and you relied on your last will and testament to provide for the disposition of the assets that are in your name when you pass away, then when you pass away, your assets will be frozen. Your survivors will hire one or more attorneys to guide them through that court-supervised probate process, which is required to gain access to assets that are titled in your name when you pass away. However, if you set up your revocable living trust right, your successor trustee that you named could be a family member, could be a spouse, could be an adult child, could be a friend, could be a professional. That successor trustee that you designated, typically within days after your death, can follow the terms that are described in your trust instrument, and that successor trustee will have the ability and the authority to start distributing assets to your trust beneficiaries really in a really short time period after you pass away. So many consumers really value that peace of mind that comes with having a living trust set up, just right, and they value the fact that they're not going to be, subjecting their loved ones to all of this government intervention that's required when you pass away with assets in your name and you rely on a will to disperse those assets through the court system. Hope that helps. We'll see you next time.